Okay, so here in the middle of these two chunks, or middle of three chunks, I guess you should say, we're going to talk about what's happening with baby outside of the placental development here. And we're going to start with the development of what we're going to call germ layers. Okay, and these are basically going to be the layers that give us inside, middle, and outside parts of our body, as well as the extra embryonic membranes. Okay, so let's talk for a minute first about those germ layers. These are endoderm, mesoderm, and it's going to begin, right, by taking that inner cell mass, and we're going to kind of flatten it out like this. And we're going to kind of just divide into three layers. Outer layer on top is the ectoderm, the mesoderm is the layer in the middle, endoderm is the layer on the bottom. And the ectoderm and endoderm in particular are going to have some foldings and things that kind of go around and eventually turn us into a tube, so to speak. The endoderm gives rise to the GI tract, and then all of the accessory organs that bud off of that. So things like lungs, etc. Okay. Mesoderm gives rise to skeletal muscle, and structural stuff like that. Ectoderm gives rise to skin, right? Also the nervous system. And this is obviously a simplified view of things, but this is basically what's going to happen. Again, we talked before already about planning, right? We go from the inner cell mass, the trophoblast, we're planning that stuff out. This is just another layer of planning, of organization, so that we can develop into the complicated machine that we are. The extra embryonic membranes are going to surround us, right? Or surround structures associated with us. They're not going to become necessarily a part of us, although there are exceptions to that rule, but they're going to be kind of an important part of our development. So the first of these extra embryonic membranes is the amnion, okay? And this is going to surround all of us. I'm going to go back to the last unit here a little bit. So this little dude here in blue, right? I'm going to not outline the whole thing. That dude in blue, that is the amnion, okay? And that's going to surround this amniotic cavity filled with amniotic fluid that we're going to spend our time floating around in. Okay, so that's one of the important ones right off. By surrounding us in fluid, it keeps us from getting stuck to ourselves. You can try this for yourself. Don't, but you can try this for yourself. Tape your fingers together and leave them for a month. Your fingers will actually grow together. It's kind of gross. So by surrounding us with fluid, we prevent our body from fusing with other parts of our body. We are buoyant so that we can more easily develop within that thing. Because it's mostly water, it doesn't change temperature very easily, so it's a relatively constant temperature for us. And it's something that we're going to use to develop our GI tract. We're going to be continuously swallowing and reprocessing that amniotic fluid, and also converting it into urine, so it helps develop our urinary tract as well. The yolk sac, believe it or not, we have a yolk sac, just like a chicken egg has a yolk sac. It's not our primary source of nutrition. That's why we have a placenta and all that stuff. But it still does form a couple of important things. Early on, this yolk sac is a source of blood cells and blood vessels. So early in development, the ventral aorta, things like that, all derive from this yolk sac. was part of the digestive tube, believe it or not. And then a little part of this yolk sac, called the allantois, actually forms the urinary bladder. The allantois is embryonically a part of the umbilical cord. And when we shed the umbilical cord, or when it's cut, actually, it becomes the urinary bladder. The last of our important extra embryonic membranes here for us, to our purposes here, is the chorion. And the chorion, you may remember from before, we talked about placentation, helps form the embryonic part of the placenta. Right. So again, I'm not going to walk through all of these here, just thinking about color schemes. Yellow, yolk, blue, amnion, pink is chorion. So here we can see the development of those structures through through 4.5 weeks. Specializations here of those germ layers. Again, primarily we think about the endoderm starting us off. This is going to be our gut tube. So the GI tract, all of that stuff, those mucosae, all derived from this endoderm. Okay. And that's going to include things like our liver, our lungs, our trachea, thyroid gland. This is going to be part of your pituitary gland, the anterior pituitary. Rathke's pouch back there is going to bud off of that. Okay. And we're going to connect down here to the allantois, umbilical cord, and eventually the urinary bladder behind that. The fetal period basically just takes this plan and builds on it. So here in the embryonic stage, I guess, if you want to think about it this way, the embryo sets up all organs. The fetus develops. All right. I think back to this little cartoon, there's little stubs of all of these things. Nothing's really functional, but they're all basically, the groundwork has been laid. The fetus is just about turning those things into functional things. Okay, nothing really novel happens here. We're just taking the blueprint we've been given and making them useful. So just kind of walk us through here, just to look at some of these, what things look like. Here's a 7-week embryo. Here's our yolk sac. Here's our chorion, the chorionic villi. So here's part of our placenta. Here's the amnion, the amniotic sac within it. Here we are about 7 weeks later at month 3. Again, we're starting to fill up this amnion, placenta behind. Late month 5 here, the last slide we'll see for this part here. Again, we're really starting to kind of get cramped in there at that point. Okay. All right, so the last part, the last part of the last chapter here was going to kind of move us forward all the way up through parturition and birth. So really exciting stuff.